This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. I should really write that down in my notes. Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find back episodes at ovpodcast.com, find the blog at obsessiveviewer.com, and you can also subscribe to the subreddit at r/obsessiveviewer. And if you want to help support the podcast, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer, or you can simply leave us a rating and review on iTunes. It helps us out a ton and gets us higher in the search results on iTunes. So this week on the podcast, we're going to be talking about workplace comedies. But first, I just want to mention that Tiny, next weekend, June 17th to the 19th. Is that next weekend?
It is next weekend, sir.
Oh my God. We are going to be at Indie PopCon at the Indiana Convention Center. Basically, it's the third year that they're doing the convention. It's the third year we're going to be a part of it, and we're really excited about it. At least I am. I can't really speak for Tiny.
No, can't. It's going to be awful.
Okay, well, you're going to be there by yourself Friday. So
No, I'm always really excited for that.
Yeah, it's always really fun.
Yeah. So again, that's June 17th to the 19th. So if you're going to be at PopCon, stop by our booth. We're going to be booth number 448. I think 448. In the Internet Alley section or whatever, the map's online. And also, if you're at PopCon on Saturday, June 18th, at 3 p.m., we're going to be on the podcaster stage. So come find us there. You can find more information about PopCon at indiepopcon.com. And, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look forward to it every year. So, Tiny, the reason that you're going to be by yourself on Friday is because I started a new job recently.
You did. Yes, you did.
Which brings us to why we chose to do this topic this week. We're talking about workplace comedies because now I have I have a job, like a new job, and it's an office job, and you know that's a prime setting for comedy and on film and television, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using that as an excuse to really just dive into us talking about workplace comedies, which it's a pretty broad topic, really.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we're kind of working from a set list, and we've incorporated both movies and TV shows, which I don't think we don't really do that often.
No, we don't.
So this is going to be fun. But it's just interesting because these titles all kind of they offer different things, or at least different workplaces that they cover. So I'm really excited to get into it. So
yeah, I think it's a great topic because it's just like so relatable.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone has a job,
right?
Everyone has had a job, and it doesn't matter if it's the service industry or if it's construction or if it's office or if it's whatever. You probably have a goofy story about the weird guy at work or the crazy stuff your boss says or anything like that, and so it just makes it super relatable, and I think that's why people like workplace comedy so much.
Right. And we worked together for several years, and when you said the weird guy at work, you gave me kind of a weird look, so I don't...
as weird as you are, you were low on the totem pole of weird people who work there.
That's true. The security industry attracts some very interesting characters.
Yes, it does.
We were security guards for a long time.
Yes, it does. I train like I fight.
Oh, my God. I love that you slipped that in there. No one's gonna anyway. So there's just so much to mine from this topic, and there's a lot. Like, I guess I want to make a caveat here that there's a lot of like none of the titles on our list go past the 90s, like the 1990s, and there are some that need to be like addressed, and I wish that we could have gotten a chance to see and talk about, but particularly 9 to 5 really is the one. And I was gonna say The Secret of My Success, and I wanted to watch that, but solely because of that one episode of It's Always Sunny that referenced it.
It's a classic movie. It's ridiculous, but it's fun.
Right.
Yeah.
But I didn't get a chance to watch it. So there's several, obviously there are a lot of different workplace comedies out there, but these are kind of more modern movies that we're going to talk about, and somewhat modern shows, I guess, 90s and 2000s.
I do want to mention that it's funny because I was looking through a list of different workplace comedies, and a lot of them were like newscast movies or newspaper movies or journalism movies, which is a topic that I want to cover in a future episode. So those were kind of omitted from the list.
Okay.
So basically, we have a list of 6 movies and like 7 shows. We're going to kind of just dive right into them, basically.
Yep.
So first up, Tiny is. Do you want to introduce it and just go?
Sure.
And forth? Cool.
The first one we have on the list is Clerks.
Yes.
Which is that movie became like an instant classic, and it's barely 20 years old. I think the reason it became such a classic is because it's about people who are kind of low on the ladder, like the lowest rung of the ladder of success, if you will. You know, it's about clerks who work behind a counter at a convenience store. That's an entry-level job if there ever was one.
Right.
And, you know, it's kind of about the malaise of what it's like to have a job like that, especially at a place like that specifically. And Clerks just took off because of its honesty, I think. And there's so much comedy in the honesty of that kind of job. Because it's demonstrated. I love the montages of the people who come in and just say the stupidest crap. When the guy's like, "Hey, do you have a hubcap for a 1975 Pinto or whatever?"
That's right.
Yeah. You expect me to drink this coffee hot? Stuff like that. It's just like those are the classic stories you hear from people who work in that kind of job. And so yeah, I think the honesty of the movie is what makes it so hilarious, and it's exceedingly clever. Good performances by the lead actors and everything. I love Clerks, and I'm glad that it launched Kevin Smith. So
me too, and I'm kind of putting the cart before the horse here, but I'm not too crazy about his career right now, Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
Tusk I wasn't a fan of, and Yoga Hosers I'm just really, really like my expectations for it. I feel like given how I felt about Tusk and how I felt about the parts of Tusk that are going to be incorporated into Yoga Hosers, it's going to be a miracle for me to actually appreciate that movie or like that movie. But with Clerks, I mean, yeah, like you said, it put him on the map. And what I love so much about Clerks itself is how much of a gamble it was on his part, because he maxed out all of his credit cards just to make this movie. No idea if it would be a success, no idea if it would do anything. Fortunately, he persevered, and it started a really long career for him, and something that he even circled back with Zack and Mary Make a Porno, where they were basically telling the story of Clerks as if it was a story of making a porno.
Right.
But also what I probably latch onto most of all in Clerks is how it's, at its heart, it's about just, like you said, the malaise of the job, but also the malaise of the mid-20s, like, time of your life. And it's so, like, the characters are at such a, just kind of, I hesitate to say the word pathetic state, but they're at kind of a bland state. Like, Dante has very confused views of relationships, and Randall isn't at all a responsible human being.
Right.
And it kind of really captures a time in the characters' lives where they're not really at a crossroads yet, but they're kind of just there, and they're kind of just letting the days fly by. And that's something that I really appreciated about the movie. And then it even carried over into Clerks 3 or Clerks 2, I'm sorry, into Clerks 2, where it's the same thing, but 10 years later, and they're in their 30s, and it's a little more serious, and has to deal with more life-changing obstacles and life-changing events going on in their lives, and having to see the success of other people that they know, like when Jason Lee's character comes in. These movies are really good character pieces for certain eras of life, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what I really appreciate about them.
And the two main characters, Dante and Randall, are just so perfectly realized between the two movies. Anyways, their progression through maturity, if you will.
Yeah.
I love those characters. And I think Clerks 2 is almost better than Clerks.
I totally agree.
I mean, that's a big statement.
Yeah, I feel like that might be a little bit of an unpopular opinion, but I really loved Clerks 2.
Me too.
I will kind of fight you on the acting though, because you mentioned that the acting was really good. Brian O'Halloran, who plays Dante, I kind of just think he's awful.
Oh, really?
Yeah, maybe it's just a personal taste for me, but he does this high, whiny, high energy kind of whine affectation in his performance that it just really kind of bothers me. But I mean, it doesn't detract from the movie at all.
I meant that like relatively, like when you consider the fact that they were filming this at night and they're totally not professional actors at all. They're just two guys basically. I think they're good performances.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
From that perspective.
Right. So that's Clerks, and we'll see what Clerks 3 has in store for us if Kevin Smith ever makes it. I
hope he does.
Yeah, I want to say that he planned on it because he wanted to do Clerks. Clerks is about the 20s. The character's 20s. Clerks 2's 30s, and then Clerks 3 is 40s. So next up on our list is basically the reigning champion of this subgenre. Like, it's the movie that everyone thinks of when you say workplace comedies. It's 1999's Office Space, which I just rewatched a couple hours ago before this recording, and man, does this movie hold up. It's so good. It's so good, and Mike Judge is a genius at crafting comedy in this particular scenario, or in this particular setting, and it comes from such a place of honesty and of knowledge of the mundane nature of the office culture and corporate culture, stuff like that. And it's just, I think that the humor in that setting breathes so effortlessly, and the movie takes so many turns to where, like, the first like maybe quarter of the movie, or the first half of the movie is all contingent on Peter Gibbons, yeah. Played by Ron Livingston, who, like, he's in this malaise, and he basically is hypnotized into not caring about the consequences of just not showing up or not doing anything. He's basically, in a kind of weird analogy, he's unplugged from the matrix of office life. And so he's just basically this carefree guy now, and it's just interesting to see in that segment of the movie to see how everyone reacts around him in that circumstance, because they're all, that's what I mean when it seems like, when I say that it seems like the movie comes from such a genuine understanding of office culture like that, is that like, no one knows what to do. Like, no one understands what's going on with this guy. And like, that alone is enough of a setup to carry a movie. But then it goes into such a different, so many different areas, and so many different, or a few different, turns, that it's really funny that the movie can successfully navigate these kind of strange turns and still be a complete movie. And still make sense within the confines of the what was established in the first act. I really appreciate that as in terms of storytelling. So, Tiny, Office Space, thoughts?
This is one of my favorite movies.
Nice.
This is a top 20 for me without question.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and you know, I started working. I got a new job a year ago, but it still feels new to me, and I'm in an office setting, and so without question, this is the most quoted movie at the office I work at.
Really?
We quote this, I don't know about daily, but very often, when someone makes a mistake, it's like, this isn't Riyadh. They're not going to cut your hands off or something like that, or someone will ask a question and they'll be like, well, you have to ask yourself, is this good for the company? Right. We just quote this movie endlessly at work. This and Forrest Gump are the two most quoted movies.
Forrest Gump?
Yeah, it's
really
random. I think it's just because of the popularity and the situations that so many of those quotes can find themselves into. But anyways, Office Space is just like a borderline perfect movie. I think it's just so perfectly paced and laid out and structured that you laugh at all the right times, and then it gets kind of serious, sometimes, and you just relate to the character of Peter Gibbons so much that you can't help but love the movie. And it's just hilarious. There's just so many funny, quotable moments that I won't go into. But I can relate to the movie so much more, having worked in an office for the last year. It just gets so many things right. It's just a classic. I mean, I agree with you that it's the reigning champion of this subgenre, if you will. It's the best example of a workplace comedy.
Nice, yeah, and I agree. Yeah, everything you said. It's funny because like we're at different points right now. Like you've been in a corporate office setting for a year, and I've been in it for a week and a half. So it's really interesting, and to see Office Space with at least a week and a half of experience within this structure and this culture and everything is just really interesting. And it's funny because it's such a cynical look at it. And my experience so far in my new job has been that everyone is pretty cool, and it's all pretty it's pretty it's not nearly as pessimistic as what this movie would have you believe that setting would be. So I feel like I kind of lucked out with that, but I'm enjoying it. And this movie really, everything you said and everything I said earlier, it's really, really spectacular, and it holds up so well. And even when they're like they're sitting there and they're just looking up money laundering in the dictionary, and Peter says like, we're nerds, we're looking up money laundering in a dictionary. It's just the way that happens is so funny.
Yeah.
And so great. And also the probably one of my favorite parts of the entire movie is the repeated use of hip hop.
Yeah.
In the contrast of using hip hop in the office setting is just so hilarious to me.
Yes.
And it's just so great. And I defy you to show me a better workplace comedy sequence than the Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster sequence.
Yes.
Because my God, it's lovely. It's just lovely.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So that's Office Space, and I mean it's fantastic.
Yes.
The next movie on our list is kind of a unique choice. It's Anchorman: The Legend of Ron Burgundy, and it's from 2004. And this is another movie that's kind of a modern classic. Or it's very well respected. The sequel, I still. Did you ever see the sequel?
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
had its moments, but that was about it.
Yeah. I wasn't too crazy about it, but yeah, this original one is just so great, and it's talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is another example of, when this movie came out, you couldn't go more than an hour in your life without hearing somebody quote it.
God, I know, right?
And it went on for like years, deservedly so, because it's just an endlessly quotable movie. But it's interesting because it kind of tackles like a serious issue, like how women were more integrated into the workforce as opposed to, just being secretaries and waitresses and nurses. The women are capable of far more than that, and right. It kind of pokes fun at how men reacted to that during this time period. So it takes a serious thing and makes light of it. So that's an interesting way into a workplace comedy, is that you're taking something that's an actual problem or an issue and poking fun at it, but it does it respectfully. You know what I mean? It's not. It doesn't turn it into. It doesn't make it a joke. It's just funny. It's situationally funny as opposed to a joke. It turns the dumb side of the argument, if you will, it turns that into a joke as opposed to the good side. I don't know.
It's an interesting historical comedy.
Right, yeah.
And it has some interesting historical context that it really twists around and plays with. And
right.
It's like you said, it's highly quotable. Like even today still, I don't know. I feel like I saw this movie in theaters a few different times, but it's just, it never got old, and it's never, I mean, even 12 years on, it still hasn't gotten old.
Oh yeah, it'll live on forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, is there anything else really it gave us Steve Carell's breakout performance.
Yeah, definitely.
As Brick, and just the cast of the whole news team is just amazing, incredible. Dave Koechner, Paul Rudd.
Yep.
Just, oh God.
Fred Willard.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Him ending his phone conversations. Oh my God, they're so funny.
Just complete, oh my God, those are so great.
I mean, we've both seen our fair share of pornography. Oh, you haven't? Okay, well, I'll talk to you later, Sister Margaret.
Of course not, Sister Margaret. Yeah.
It's so ridiculous.
Oh God, yeah. Oh, it's just so great.
The subtle stuff like that not everybody picks up on. It's amazing how many jokes they cram into this movie.
Yeah.
I think Mike is the first person who used joke density, or he has a term for that. Yeah, and it's like this movie is just nonstop with the jokes. And
also, Christina Applegate.
Yes.
She is so great at playing because I mean, she probably had, I would go so far as to say she probably had the hardest job in this movie.
Yeah.
Because she's playing this, she has to play off of these really obnoxious characters toward her in a way that's funny, while also being like making sure that the stakes of the, like, I don't know how to articulate it, because I just don't know how to articulate it, but she's playing off of the harsh punchlines of these jokes while also like making her own jokes or making her own presence not just be the punchline of it. And part of that's the writing, but a lot of it is also in the performance of her. And it's something that's really, really, she handles really well.
Yeah, she has to be smart and funny, while the other guys are all just dumb.
Yeah,
they're ignorant idiots, and so that they kind of have the easy way into the comedy, but she has to find her way in, because she's obviously way smarter than everyone there, and like takes her job really seriously compared to these other guys, and so she has to find her own comedy amongst that. So you're right, she did have the harder job, the more difficult performance in this.
I mean, she had to go back to her home on Whore Island.
Oh my God.
Oh God, so great. So that's Anchorman, and it's really amazing. And I feel like this was one of the first like Apatow Productions movies. I'm sure I don't know if there were more before it or what, but this was like the breakout, that brand. And also we could have also probably brought up 4-Year-Old Virgin.
A little bit,
which was kind of the next one. Okay, so next up is Waiting.
Yes.
From 2005. This is really the only food service industry movie on this list. Interesting.
Yeah.
I will give a quick shout out to the movie Waffle Street, which was at Heartland, and I want to say that it's I think it's available on iTunes and Google Play now, but or it might even be on Netflix. I'm not sure, but it's a really good movie, and it's a good workplace kind of dramedy. It's really, really well done, and it handles the food service industry really well. But Waiting made me terrified of like any type of food service industry job. Like I've never worked in a restaurant, and there's reason, because this is because honestly it seems like such a nightmare to me. Like I tip 20% if I have terrible service, just because I don't understand how someone can work in that environment and keep their sanity.
Me too.
Yeah. So, oh my God. Yeah. So Waiting is a really good example of a movie about the food service industry that's really, I don't know. I love the movie. I love it. I love the way that it has a clear character arc for the main character, played by Justin Long. And it's just this really, it's something that's really relatable to anyone who's worked in a job where they feel like they're not working to their full potential, and the job in itself isn't conducive to growing their potential or helping them grow where they want to, what they want to do. And that's like the scenes between Justin Long and Dave Koechner in that movie, where Dave Koechner is kind of this, he's just the manager that's kind of really,
takes his job too seriously.
Takes his job too seriously. He's goofy, and he's very much a part of the, I don't even remember the restaurant's name, but he's very much a part of that corporate like entity. And you get the sense that Justin Long feels like, okay, well, you know, he has these intentions of like going back to school or doing something with his life, but he's getting pulled into this world. And that's something that I really appreciated about that movie, was how it kind of had this story at its heart about this character going through a turning point in his life, basically, and coming to terms with what he wants out of his life at this point in time. What did you think of Waiting, Tiny?
You know, for me, it's actually, I think it's almost, it's like a close second to Office Space.
Oh, nice.
For the subgenre.
Very nice.
This movie, I think, hits a lot of the same notes and is structured remarkably well, and is just like so true to life that it's kind of scary. And I also appreciate the way that the main character is shown as, he's just one of those people. There's millions of them out there who you just get stuck. You get comfortable. You get a job somewhere, and you're like, I'm just going to work here while I'm going to school, or this is temporary. And you work there for 10 years or something.
Again, you looked at me when you said that.
Myself included, because I kind of got stuck in a job for years and years and years,
right.
And it's like, you know, you feel like you're capable of more, but you just don't know what to do. And he is that character. I mean, that's
God, yeah.
He's just that character perfectly. And then there's so many other archetypes of people who work in the service industry, who work in the food service industry. Who are just played perfectly in this movie. There's that crazy person who's been there way too long.
Right.
There's the goofy guy who takes nothing seriously but is strangely good at his job. The new guy, played by John Francis Daly. And it's just, it's so fun how the whole movie just takes place in one day. You see like the evolution of one day working at a food service, working at a restaurant like this, one of these corporate chain restaurants. And my fiance, Paige, worked at a chain restaurant.
That's
like this.
right.
Yeah, and when she first started there were only 3 locations here in Indiana, and now they have like 9 or 10. It's become,
oh, wow.
When she was there, it became like very corporate and very much like this. And like, she told me that this movie is kind of like their Bible for where they worked, and they used to just watch it all the time. And
Jeez.
she said there's so much truth to it, it's not even funny. And the movie is just really classic, and it has fantastic characters, great sequences. I think it's underrated. I think there are so many people who should see this movie who never have.
And the way that it's shot and filmed is also pretty impressive itself, because there are sequences where it's just going through the entire restaurant, and it's kind of just going through, like, hitting all the beats of the different characters and what they're doing, and that, like, in such a confined space, like I get claustrophobic just seeing people like during a dinner rush at a restaurant, and I'm thinking, like, to capture that on film is pretty. It takes some talent, and I think that it captured it really well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. To go back to Justin Long's character, just that scene, like the scene that I wouldn't say resonates with me more than any, but the scene that kind of hits me each time I see it is when he is taking the order for like the kind of the business guys that are all ordering stuff, and like he's showing his skills. He's showing off a little bit, I guess, but he's just doing it like all from memory. Like he knows everything that everyone ordered, and then like he comes back and one of the customers is like, hey, you know you're really sharp, and I get the sense that you don't really want to be here for the rest of your life. So, you know, if you ever want to change, give me a call. He hands him his business card. So in that moment, it's like Justin Long is like, oh, cool. Yeah. A life preserver.
Right.
Something that's going to get me out of this. And just the scene where he looks at the business card and it's a steak restaurant. It's
right.
Like they own a restaurant. It's like, man, that hurts.
Yeah. That's tough.
Yeah. not to disparage anyone who has a career in the food service industry. Like I said, I respect the hell out of anyone who can do that.
Yeah.
It's just in that movie, in the context of that movie is just so, because the audience knows that the character doesn't belong there, and it's so, it's just, it comes across so genuine, and it's really great. I love it for that.
Yeah, and there's a big difference between working at like an Applebee's or something, which is kind of what this movie kind of shines a light on.
Right.
There's a big difference between that and like a one of a kind restaurant where being a waiter can actually be kind of an art, and you have to know a ton of things and what kind of wines go with this, and like it's a hard job no matter where, but you can get to a level where you're working at like a local steakhouse that's $100 per person, and that's like a career, but this shines a light on what's most common, and that you work in a corporate structure and you're the bottom rung of, again, I hate to use that analogy again, but you're on the bottom rung of the corporate ladder, and you get treated like crap.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I could never do this job.
Right.
I never waited tables, and I never could. I could not do it. I would eat all the food.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that too.
I'd be fired on the first day.
Right. But it's just it's such a great movie. I just really love it. Have you ever seen Still Waiting?
No, I have
the
not.
Straight to DVD sequel. Yeah. It bums me out to see it, because there is one cameo in the movie. I'm going to go ahead and spoil Still Waiting. No, there's a cameo in it that bums me out, because it's basically someone shows up from the first movie, and it bums me out to see that cameo in that movie. But
okay.
Maybe I need to watch it again. But the whole Waiting itself, the original Waiting, is really, really well done, and really, yeah, it's really great. I was trying to make a joke about like medium well done. Yeah, like the steaks served in the restaurant that I can't remember the name of. Was it Shenanigans?
I think it was Shenanigans.
Shenanigans, yeah. Shenanigans.
Yeah.
Super Troopers. Anyway,
which could also be a workplace comedy.
Right, yeah. Damn. But the much like the steaks at Shenanigans in the movie Waiting, this movie is well done.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm weirdly not that proud of that. Okay, Tiny, do you want to bring up the next one?
Yeah, next up we have the movie Horrible Bosses from 2011, yes. Which again is so much about relatability. I think so many people have had horrible bosses to the point where they've fantasized about at least something horrible happening to them. Right. Maybe not murdering them,
right?
But something horrible happening to them. Thankfully, I've never had a boss that bad. But I've had one or two that I just kind of hate a little bit. So that's kind of the cleverness of doing a workplace comedy, is you find common ground, find something that somebody can relate to, and from there it's just rife with opportunities for comedy. I think part of what made this movie so funny is that they took very famous and well-respected actors and put them and made them the horrible bosses.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I can't think of
Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell, thank you.
Kevin Spacey,
Jennifer Aniston. Yeah, like the most famous people in the movie are the horrible bosses.
Right.
And it's just it was a really clever idea because it works so well. Seeing Colin Farrell with the comb over and the horrible attitude.
I freaking love his performance in this movie.
Me too.
It's so fun. It's fantastic. So fun.
And even Kevin Spacey, who, needs no introduction, and no one was surprised that he can put in a good performance.
Right.
But the part where I love the line where he's like, "I had no idea that you called your grandmother and just his laugh. His laugh is so genuine.
It's so
just
great.
So mean. And like just the fact that he was able to do that without losing it, I don't know. There's some really classic performance stuff in this movie.
Yeah. God, and again, Colin Farrell though.
Yeah.
Just my God, the rolling around in his special little secret chair. It's like it's so mean and so terrible. Like they're so mean spirited.
Yes,
and it's so great. And I love the interplay between the three leads, Jason Bateman, Jason Sudeikis, and Charlie Day. I mean, those three actors working together are just like, they have the best chemistry.
Oh, absolutely.
They are freaking amazing. And like, even when they're doing some stuff as simple as just ragging on Charlie Day's character for his problem, because it's very different from their problems, obviously. And I don't know, and it plays to all of their strengths so well without typecasting them. Like Sudeikis, he is this kind of charming, like a-hole-ish kind of guy, but he still has that charm, and he's charismatic. And Jason Bateman is kind of as close to the straight man of the group as can be, but he still has his own quirks and everything. And Charlie Day is kind of the lovable buffoon of it. It's such a great dynamic between the three of them. And I love Horrible Bosses too. I love Horrible Bosses 2 as well.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen the second one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, man.
But
yeah.
I'm with you on the chemistry of the three leads too. It's like they're not acting.
Right.
It's like they're just being themselves, and someone showed up with the camera.
Right.
They're all just pillars of comedic acting, if you ask me. I think they're all really good. So
if I could, Tiny, I would bend this movie over the barrel and show it the 50 states.
Is that a saying?
It is now.
Hey.
God,
it is now.
It's ridiculous. Oh yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Anything else on Horrible Bosses?
No, it's another instant classic, I think.
Nice, yeah. You definitely need to watch Horrible Bosses too. I think it's definitely
Also, we didn't mention Jamie Foxx as Motherfucker Jones.
Yes. Oh my God, the scene where he tells the origin story of his name.
Yeah, I don't even remember it.
Oh my God, I'm gonna go ahead and spoil it here, guys. This movie's 5 years old. If you want to have the majesty of Jamie Foxx's performance in it, like, unsullied, skip ahead like 30 seconds. But he goes.
How'd you get the nickname Mother?
When I was a kid, I snuck into my mother's bedroom.
Uh-oh.
She was laying there naked.
Dean.
She had been drinking all night.
Yuck.
And then I snuck up behind her. And then I slipped my fingers into her purse.
Purse? You said purse.
And I took her money, the whole week's pay. I really f***ed her over, and that's how I got the name Motherfucker Jones.
Right.
Yeah. You know, they should call you Mother Over Jones to avoid confusion, right?
What's the confusion?
There's no confusion. Here we go. We're going to get back on track.
That's why they call me Motherfucker Jones. It's just so great.
That's great.
Like, that's one of those times where I saw it in the theater and tears were streaming down my face because I was laughing so hard at that.
That's awesome.
So great. Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. So yeah, so that's and as far as the relatability of it, to bring it back to the main topic, like you said, Tiny, like, everyone's had like horrible bosses. I haven't had any that are that bad that I can think of. Like, all my bosses at my former company were pretty good, or were great, and obviously,
yeah.
And the ones at my new job seem really good, and that's my entire work history basically. But yeah,
that's rare though.
It is, yeah.
Most people have had bosses they hate.
Right.
Or at least moments where they hate their boss.
Right.
So.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I've had some bosses that I've clashed with in the past. So, yeah. So there are a lot of different workplace comedies, movies, but those are the ones that stand out to us in our shared viewing experiences of the last 30 or so years since we were born. So we're gonna kind of briefly touch on just a few TV shows, just kind of rapid fire. On this list, I have the Drew Carey Show, which, if you remember, Drew Carey in the show was like, he worked for a department store or something, in distribution or something like that. Did you ever watch Drew Carey show?
I didn't really watch it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It was the kind of show that we kind of just played. We watched it like kind of in passing. I think maybe when it was in syndication, and we just like it wasn't like a appointment viewing. But I actually really enjoyed it. John Carroll Lynch is in it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I want to say like this show ran from 95 to 2004, and I want to say that John Carroll Lynch, he played Drew Carey's brother, and there was an arc where he decided, or it became like he's a cross-dresser or something.
That's right. Okay, I remember that a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't remember how they handled it, but I mean it was the mid 90s, early 2000s. It would be interesting to go back and see how it is in this kind of our current culture now,
right?
Compared to then and how it was depicted on screen. Unfortunately, it's not streaming anywhere.
That's too bad.
Which sucks, but
I'd be interested in watching it because I know I remember that show was famous because arguably the supporting characters were the funniest part. Diedrich Bader and I don't remember the other actor's name. The tall guy from Whose Line
Ryan
Is It?
Stiles? Is that him? Or is that someone else?
That might be someone else.
Yeah, the guy from Whose Line.
Yeah. And the woman who I think was in the relationship with Drew Carey on the show, she was more famous for Scrubs, I think.
Oh, yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, we did our research for this one.
We really didn't.
I really didn't know the show that well, but every once in a while, when I would catch it, I'd be like, man, the supporting characters are almost the best part of the show. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
It's really a mark of a good sitcom also.
Yeah.
Supporting characters. Next up, Rapid Fire also is Just Shoot Me. Some of these episodes are available on Crackle, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, David Spade is, I think, one of the central characters in the show. It's about working at a magazine. I remember enjoying it. It was another show like Drew Carey where we just kind of played it whenever it was on. It was a good like sick day TV show also because it aired reruns on like USA, I think, during the day. So I mean, it's a fun show. It's a fun show, worth checking out. Yeah, I don't really remember much else of it, but the next one, Tiny, I doubt that you've seen. But
no, I have not.
Okay, I think it's got like Fred Savage, I think, but it's called Working. Don't know anything about it. All I know is that when I saw it as a kid, I saw it and was like, "Oh, it's a show about them working in an office." And like this was such a novel idea to me because I was like, you know, it was aired from 97 to 99, so I was 12, and it really kind of seemed interesting to me, and it seemed the comedy was pretty good for the time for me.
Yeah.
So it was cool. Don't think it's available anywhere, but and then I'm gonna so the next one is Scrubs, which kind of a workplace medical comedy.
Oh, awesome show.
Oh yeah. One of the best non-series series finales ever.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, which was the season 8 finale, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's fantastic. And then the last two, obviously, we can probably talk a little more about them, but I mean, we're running a little low on time.
Yeah.
The Office and Parks and Rec, we would be remiss not to mention them. They are just titans of television.
Yeah.
And their legacy is going to go on for a while. I actually just started rewatching season 9 of The Office, the last season, just because I felt like they didn't stick the landing on it for me. And there are some, I'm only 2 episodes into it, but there are some elements of it that I still just, I can't reconcile in my brain now. But, Catherine Tate's whole character just should have been cut out of the show entirely.
Yeah.
But even at its worst, the show was just absolutely amazing. It is the quintessential workplace comedy.
Agreed.
Probably in film or TV.
It's the Office space of TV.
It is, yeah.
In my book, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's so great. It's so great. And when I was my first week of work was last week, and I had to do orientation, and when I had some downtime during in between training sessions, I basically had to watch some corporate videos that the company had online. And to their credit, they're really well done corporate videos and everything, there was one on sexual harassment and the discrimination in the workplace, stuff like that. And like each time I saw it, like each time they had an example, I just pulled from the banks of my memory like a Michael Scott scene.
Yep.
And it was like, all I was thinking was, man, they should just put clips from The Office into these training sessions or into these training videos.
It's memorable.
It's so memorable.
Yeah.
And it's so true to that culture also.
Yeah.
And it's just so great. Yeah. Oh God. I just adore that show. And the characters, obviously, like you said about, Drew Carey, is that the supporting characters were very strong. And like even, I mean, sure, there was a huge vacuum when Steve Carell left, but, we could probably do a whole retrospective.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. But there was a vacuum left, but still the supporting characters were like, if it was just a Steve Carell vehicle, it would not have worked nearly as well as it did, not by a long stretch, because they had so many just incredibly memorable supporting characters in running bits that ran through the entire series. Like, I was shocked because, like, there's one of my favorite kind of running gags of the whole series is that Toby's in love with Pam.
Yeah.
And it's so hilarious to me. And then even in season 9, there's a scene where like the people are in the break room and they're doing kind of like a newlywed game type of game, and it's basically like Jim and Pam are writing on their first celebrity crushes, or they're guessing Pam's first celebrity crush, and Jim says John Stamos, and then she's like, no, it was, and then like before she can say it, Toby just says Johnny Depp. And then, like, it's the creepiest and it's the weirdest, most awkward silence ever, because she says it, like, immediately after he says it, and then, like, everyone looks at him, and then he's just like, Johnny Depp, yeah, I was just talking to Kevin, and Johnny Depp, and it's so, like, little things like that are what make this show so memorable and so fantastic to me. Tiny, what do you think of The Office?
I agree. I think it's the quintessential workplace comedy as well.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that moniker. And I think so much of it is, it's amazing how so much of it is Steve Carell, which is crazy. Because I don't want to put the quality of the show all on one person, because it's an amalgamation of things. It's not just one thing. The writing is out of this world, and all the characters are just so realized, but you're so familiar with them, but you don't know what they're going to do next.
Right.
It's just hard to pull off. And I agree with the ending, or the last couple seasons.
Yeah.
They took some weird turns, but you just have to keep in mind how hard it is to conclude a series.
Oh yeah.
I mean, appreciate the journey. Like, don't people put a little bit too much pressure on the endings of stories. I think the journey is where it's at. But I don't want to take anything away from the show. It's just so good.
Yep.
Love it.
I love it too. And our last pick for this segment and this topic is Parks and Rec, obviously. Kind of goes hand in hand with The Office. Everything about it is like, everything about what made The Office great is kind of what made Parks and Rec great. And what separates Parks and Rec from The Office is that it created this entire town. Like Pawnee, Indiana is as much, oh my God, this is such a contrived thing to say. It's such a character in the show. But when I say that, I don't mean that in the contrived sense. I mean that literally the scenes where the government has these public forums are some of the best scenes of the entire series, because you have these just random people representing the city of Pawnee just saying complete nonsense, and it's great universe building, basically. And it reached kind of its height toward the end of the series' run, because you had Eagleton as a competing town, and it's just that dynamic is what made me really, like, one of the things that made me really fall in love with Parks and Rec. And it's absolutely phenomenal. Also, to bring it back to The Office real quick, I think it's funny that, like, the U.S. office is such a beast. Obviously, it ran for a lot longer than the UK office, but like, we just said The Office and immediately default U.S. office.
Right.
So the British office is also a really great workplace comedy, obviously.
Yeah. And
David Brent is amazing, but but it's just The Office, the our version,
Yeah.
is just so ubiquitous and great.
Right. Yeah, with Parks and Recreation, I was never as into it as a lot of people were.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it was just a little too derivative of The Office for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like The Office in a different setting. But where it deserves a crap ton of credit is in the characters, because they did create their own characters. I mean, there's maybe some similar dynamics, but Ron Swanson is just like one of the best characters in TV history.
Absolutely.
He's just that character is just so ridiculous. The concept alone of a person who is vehemently anti-government working in the government that's just classic. I mean, whoever thought that up is brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
And not to mention he's a kind of a libertarian, kind of the way I am, small government person, and so like I relate to that a little bit. But it's so perfect because it pokes fun at how ridiculous that idea can be sometimes. And I appreciated all the different places they took that character.
Yeah.
He was just especially awesome. But then Andy Dwyer, played by Chris Pratt, and his dedication to that character after he became a huge star, was great. He played it awesomely.
Oh yeah. It's not even really one of my favorite scenes, just one of the funniest bits for me was when Chris Pratt got Guardians of the Galaxy and bulked up for it and everything, and like he was before that he was kind of the doughy guy, and then there's just a scene where Chris Pratt and Adam Scott are walking up the stairs and like they're just having a conversation, and it's like, and Adam Scott's like, Chris Pratt says, yeah, I just stopped drinking beer. And I lost like 40 pounds. And it's just like, really? How much beer were you drinking? It's just such a great throwaway line. But
that's funny.
But yeah, the characters are fantastic in the show, and the scenarios that they put them in are really great. While I wasn't really on board with the kind of choices that were made at the start of the final season, and how it kind of shifted the show in a certain direction, I think that it ended really well, and the character of Leslie Knope is just fantastic, and Amy Poehler, just, my God, I don't have this information readily available, but I don't think she ever won an Emmy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that is a freaking travesty.
That's a shame. Yeah.
Yeah, because she was phenomenal. Like you said, Ron Swanson is one of the great TV characters of all time, and Leslie Knope, I think, is right up there with him.
She wasn't quite there for me,
really?
Honestly.
Okay.
She was good, but
okay.
I don't want to take anything away from her. But
right.
Again, she just felt a little derivative of Michael Scott to me.
Okay, yeah. No,
overly enthusiastic.
Yeah.
And
at first she did. Like, at first she was basically a Michael Scott clone, but I feel like after maybe a season and a half, she really got into her own. She was really in. She became her own character and more ambitious and
yeah, the ambition definitely
competent.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
Right.
Qualified.
Right.
But yeah, I see what you're saying though. I understand.
Yeah.
And also, thank God they got rid of the Jim Halpert of the show, essentially.
Paul Schneider, is that?
Paul Schneider, yeah. Which, I mean, it's not even really I don't know if it's a question of his performance or if I think it's a mixture of the performance and just not knowing what to do with the character.
Yeah.
Because he was very flat, very kind of played it cool, but it just seemed like his character just didn't fit into what the show eventually became. Like, it just seemed like his character was a byproduct of The Office. Like okay, The Office has these archetypes. Let's copy them here. And then when Parks and Rec became the show that it was, I feel like that character just didn't fit in at all.
I agree, and you could tell his heart wasn't in it.
Right, yeah.
And if your heart's not going to be in it, you don't need to be there.
Exactly.
So I really didn't miss him.
Yeah, me neither. And it's kind of funny, and I don't know what it says about the behind the scenes of it, but it's funny that he's just really never referenced again.
Yeah.
Like, at all. Like, even in the finale or the final season, so.
The only thing I missed was his name, Brandanowitz.
Yeah, Mark Brandanowitz.
Awesome Pollock name.
But we got Rob Lowe and Adam Scott.
Oh, yeah.
And those characters those performers in those characters were fantastic.
Much better additions to the show.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So that rounds us out for our main topic. And before we get to Potpourri, I actually have some listener thoughts on the topic. Basically, what I've been doing lately, what I've been doing lately is I've been posting on Twitter and Facebook on the day of recording, saying like, "Hey, this is what we're recording tonight. Give us your thoughts on the topic or whatever." And we get, some responses. So if you're listening to this and you don't follow us on Facebook or Twitter, go ahead and do that now. It's facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer, and I'm at obsessiveviewer and Tiny's at obsessivetiny. So we got some feedback on the topic of workplace comedies. So I'm going to read through them really quickly. Friend of the show, Justin, who was at Shocktober in Irvington.
Yep.
And hopefully will be at the Shocktober in Irvington. On the topic of workplace comedies, he said, "No list would be complete without Office Space. The comic genius of Mike Judge combined with the catharsis of watching someone completely let go of their stressors and insecurities, speaking their mind to all of their awful archetypal coworkers is amazing. Clerks, while not my favorite work of Kevin Smith's, was also certainly an interesting watch as Dante deals with his 20-something rut while painting an interesting allegory alongside Inferno. And hey, it got Smith moving on to bigger projects." And then he also said, "I've seen Archer and the Venture Brothers lumped in, but I think that's kind of pushing the genre a little." Yeah, I almost mentioned Archer, but
yeah,
I agree with him that it's a little bit of a stretch.
It's more of a spy comedy than a workplace comedy.
In the early days of the Archer, it was very much like a workplace comedy,
right?
But then it branched out a lot. So
yeah.
His fiance and friend of the show, friends of the co-host, and former coworker of the co-hosts. She was actually my manager for 2 days before I left the company. Alex, she said she had a list of 3. The Office, because it's comical and emotional all at the same time. Number 2 is Parks and Rec, because Amy Poehler kills it and Chris Pratt is hilarious. And then 3, and this surprised me because I know Alex well, and this does not seem like a show that she would be into. But number 3 is Eastbound and Down, and she actually says, "Typically not my type of comedy. Example, ridiculously crude and cringy, but I couldn't stop watching it." So, yeah,
it's a good mention. Yeah.
Then we have Brandon Yoder from Billy and Brandon Watch Movies. He said, "Does Scrubs count? The majority of it takes place in their workplace, and I don't think I need to list reasons why it's one of the best sitcoms of all time." Totally agree.
Yep.
And then friend of the show and former guest, Sam Nelson, he said, "Definitely Office Space and potentially Horrible Bosses as well, if that counts." That's another thing. I feel like I was pretty vague in the post about it, like workplace comedy, so it's pretty vague.
Right.
So a lot of these are, does it count? Jeff Palermo from Sci-Fi On Screen podcast said, "The Office, end of story." Agreed.
Yeah.
And then friend of the show, Craig from Intermission podcast said, "The Office, obviously. Oh, and Office Space because it's hilarious." God, we got so many of these. Hang tight, we're almost done. Friend of the show, Mike from Indie Popcorn at Grey Matter Splat. He said, "It may be cliche, but Office Space still holds up." Totally agree. And then Matt, who I believe you work with.
He's a friend of mine.
He's a friend of yours.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if you worked it with him or not.
No, he's a friend.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. Anyway, Matt says, "In addition to Office Space, you can always do Grandma's Boy for more IT workers, or Idiocracy if you're a time traveler."
Nice.
And I told him that as an aspiring time traveler, I applaud your choice of Idiocracy.
Yeah, Matt works in IT, so he's got some great stories.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think of Grandma's Boy. Like, I didn't even think about that, but yeah. Then also a longtime listener Yasmin said, "The Office US had the funniest characters, and Veep has such great dialogue. Just started the thick of it, and it's hilarious. I'm really anxious to check out the thick of it." Then also, and only 3 more to go, guys, I promise. Dylan Shuck, former guest on the podcast. He has the podcast, The Watch and Talk. He said, "The Office, LOL, I picked the easy one." And then one of our more recent listeners, Paul, he said Office Space. He actually, I think he has a Seinfeld podcast, like a bracket podcast coming out.
Okay.
soon. So, and then finally to round us out, Brian Davids from Film Schlubs and former guest on the show, and future guest at some point. He said Waiting, Empire Records, Clerks, and then he said The Devil Wears Prada is a decent movie, all things considered. Don't tell anyone I said that.
Oh, that's completely defensible. That's a great movie. I think it's a really good movie. It's really funny and clever.
I wanted to make time to watch it and talk about it, but I didn't.
It's a good movie.
Get around to it. So that's our feedback. Thanks for writing in, guys, and thanks for commenting and tweeting and all that. And be on the lookout for future posts like that.
Yeah, thank you, listeners. That's awesome.
Yep. So Potpourri, lightning round.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can go ahead and kick us off if you want.
Okay. I have two things. So I'll let me start off. Okay. First time listeners. Potpourri section of the podcast, talk about whatever we want as long as it smells good. I'll start off lightning round. This weekend I saw 2 movies in the theater. The first one I saw was The Nice Guys with Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. Such a fun buddy cop noir-esque 70s noir movie, basically.
Wow.
And it was so much fun. It's Shane Black writing and directing. He co-wrote it.
Oh, I didn't know it was Shane Black.
Yeah. Oh my God. And the dialogue is so fantastic.
Awesome.
Like, there are moments in the movie that just had me just cracking up, and I was really along for the ride. However, the mystery at the center of the story was I was a little disengaged in it throughout, but I think the dynamic between Crowe and Gosling just really, really made up for it. And special mention to, I think I don't know how to pronounce her name, but she's an Australian actress. Her name is Angourie Rice. Butchering that, but she plays Ryan Gosling's daughter in the movie, and she's a scene stealer. And
wow.
And like in the trailer, I was like, oh, okay, cool. So Ryan Gosling's character has a daughter. That's fine. But in the movie, she plays a more like central role in it. She's basically like the third wheel to their dynamic, and it works so well.
Nice.
And there are just moments that it plays with the conventions and it plays with expectations in such a fun way. And by the end of it, all I was thinking was, I had so much fun in this world with these characters, and I would like to see more. I don't know if there will ever be another Nice Guys. I doubt it, but it was just so much. It's such a fun ride. So
nice. I'm way more excited about that knowing that it's Shane Black.
Nice. I didn't know that you didn't know.
No, I did not know that.
Nice. So that's Nice Guys. I think it's still in theaters, but I just saw it 2 days ago, or 4 days ago. But
okay.
Anyway. What do you have for Potpourri, Tony?
I have an HBO movie from 2001 called Conspiracy. I was just kind of flipping through HBO Go movies over the weekend looking for something to watch, and this popped up. I'd never even heard of it. I highly recommend it.
Nice.
The film is about the WWII conference, which I did not even know this existed. So in winter of 1942, a bunch of high-ranking Nazi officials and members of the Nazi government convened at a remote location in Germany to discuss the final solution to the Jewish problem.
Oh, wow.
And it was like 12 or 15 people got together and made the decision to start exterminating Jews. Wow. I had no idea that ever happened. And most people, no one knew about it for a long time. It was one of those things that no one was supposed to keep a record of it, but by accident someone did. Someone found the transcripts, and that's how we know about it. The movie is absolutely terrific. Fair warning though, it is 90 minutes long. 80% of it is people sitting around a table talking.
Okay.
So be aware of that. It's not for everyone. But the cast is spectacular. The two biggest names are Kenneth Branagh and Stanley Tucci. But then also Tom Hiddleston is in it barely. But it was kind of fun to see him. And then some of the other standouts were Colin Firth. At the time, he wasn't really a big name, but obviously now he's an Oscar winner.
Right.
And then Ian McNeice, who people might know from Doctor Who. He played Winston Churchill in some episodes of Doctor Who. He was really good in that. Owen Teale, who plays one of the Knights.
Oh, yeah.
Night's Watchman on Game of Thrones.
He's Alistair Thorne.
Alistair Thorne, thank you. Yeah, I couldn't remember the character's name. And then Brendan Coyle from most famous for Downton Abbey as Mr. Carson.
Okay.
The cast
is John Bates.
You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, John Bates.
I've never seen. I'm just on IMDb.
Good job.
But anyway,
I would have screwed that up. But for me, obviously Kenneth Branagh is a standout. He's just one of those like classically trained British actors, and he plays kind of the lead, if you will. Not that there even is a lead in the movie, but he's the highest ranking person at the table, and he basically already has his mind made up, and he's basically just trying to convince other people to participate in this awful, the worst crime in human history. And it's his performance is just astounding. He can just stare bullets into people, and you're like intimidated as an audience member. It's just he's so impressive in this movie, and they managed to. It's amazing that they managed to make sympathetic characters out of some of these people. Colin Firth plays a lawmaker. He's a lawyer who's he wrote the Nuremberg laws, which were the first laws about what to do with the persecuted Jews of Germany.
Right.
And he tries to defend against exterminating Jews, but his defense is we should just sterilize them instead.
Oh, wow.
Which is just an unbelievably cruel thing to do. And so even your most sympathetic character is horribly racist and terrible, but you still manage to sympathize with them. It's really an incredible feat of writing and acting. The performances are just so good.
That is awesome.
I recommend it so much because it's a piece of history I had no idea even existed. And everyone involved just absolutely crushed everything.
Nice.
It's on HBO Go. If you don't mind watching people talk for an hour and a half, watch this movie.
Well, I mean, we're listening to a podcast, Tiny.
So everybody would like it. Anyone, even kids. No, do not show this to your children, please.
Oh, wow.
It's very good.
Nice. That's awesome. So that's called Conspiracy, and it's on HBO Go.
Yep.
And to round out the topic or the potpourri segment in the episode, a couple days ago, I saw Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping.
Oh, nice.
Oh, my God, Tiny.
Yeah.
First of all, fun little behind the curtain thing. I went to a 3:30 showing on Sunday, and friend of the show, frequent guest Robert Feckes was in that screening.
Really?
Yeah, it was like seeing a celebrity.
That's funny.
So that was cool. But seeing the movie was the actual movie was just hysterical, and coming off the cusp of us just having talked about music and musician movies, and having just seen Spinal Tap for the first time, this movie is okay. So it's really tough to do this type of movie, and from as far as I can tell, it flopped at the box office.
Yeah.
But this is a risk. It's like a. Let me ask you this, Tiny. Are you a fan of The Lonely Island?
Oh yeah.
Okay, you will love this movie because it is like an hour and a half long Lonely Island video.
Nice.
It is fantastic. It's about Andy Samberg. They're not the Lonely Island in the movie, obviously, but Andy Samberg plays this guy named Connor Friel, who embarks on a solo pop music career as Connor For Real. And after he splits from his boy band Style Boys, which is made up of the other two from the Lonely Island. And the movie is it's a mockumentary style movie, and it's freaking hilarious. I can't really speak highly enough about the comedy of it, but it's
nice.
Like, definitely go check it out. It's absolutely hilarious. Tim Meadows plays like his manager, I believe, and anytime he's on screen, I just think, man, I love Tim Meadows. He's fantastic.
He's great.
And he's really great in that role. There's one scene where he has a scene with another character, and then he turns and walks up to Connor, and the look on his face is just like, it's just a split contrast between like a high energy, like angry scene with another character, and then he looks and he has this oh my God, that just happened look on his face, like like it's so funny. I'm not doing it justice, but there's a few scenes where I just lost my it was hilarious through and through, and I highly recommend checking it out. And it also has some heart to it also. I will say that there's some good heart to it, and it's just and the cameos the cameos in it is so funny. There's so many. Like I'll give one little piece away, but like Usher pops up, and there's a lot of like talking heads of just famous musicians and everything, and Usher pops up, and like he mentions like, man, just seeing the Style Boys when they broke up or whatever, and he's like they had an album called Donkey Roll or something, and they had like a dance called the Donkey Roll, and he's like, that album, that's the reason I started dancing. And like seeing Usher say that is just it's hilarious.
That's funny.
And it's such a good movie, and I'm just kind of circling back. There's a really funny, I'll leave on this. There's a really funny gag that they do, where they cut to, like when something happens in the story, they cut to basically TMZ, but they call it CMZ, and it's like those little segments on the TMZ show where they're talking and laughing very obnoxiously about different taking story ideas and stuff about the stuff that they've found on people, and they're all like drinking and like drinking from bottles and everything. They ape that and they parody it so well in this movie. Mike Birbiglia, it's made up of several people in the scene, several like notable people, but I'm going to single out Mike Birbiglia because he has this ridiculous, like he has khaki shorts and a ridiculously long blonde hair thing. And it's, oh my God, it's so funny.
Nice.
It's so funny.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah. So please go check out Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping. And then also, come check us out at Indie PopCon.
Please do.
Yes, and also I forgot to mention this at the top, but we're still doing that iTunes thing that I said last week. If you leave us an iTunes review and like the Facebook page, send us a message on Facebook with your username for iTunes, or copy and paste the review. Whatever. Send us a message on Facebook, and you will be entered into a pool of names of other contestants for the chance to win a $10 gift card to Amazon.
Awesome. Which
will be doled out at the end of the month, or at the beginning of next month, actually. So you have until June 30th to do all this. Go do that, and and that's about it. What are we doing next week?
If Mike's here, do we want to do the 3-year thing?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. We might do. We have one of two things we're going to do next week. We're either going to do a special 3-year anniversary podcast episode if Mike is available for it. If not, then review Warcraft.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That's what we'll do.
Nice.
So all right. Well, thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks. Do you want to skip the internship?
Yeah, kind of.
It seems to not fit with these, because the other ones are like almost instant classics and they're like super quotable.
That's true.
I barely even remember the internship.
Yeah, me neither. I was going to bring up the internship and the intern, but I watched the intern last night, and it is not a workplace comedy.
Oh, really?
It's like a heartfelt comedy about an old intern, and it's actually a really good movie. You should check it out.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
I know it's on HBO Go.
Yeah, that's how I watched it.
Okay.
So there are a lot of different work.
Thank you for listening to The Obsessive Viewer, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at ovpodcast.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast app. The Obsessive Viewer's theme song is An Eclipse of Events and is provided by Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. You can find that and more great music from them on iTunes, and like their Facebook page at facebook.com/loudlikemusic. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can email the hosts individually at Matt, Tiny, or Mike at ObsessiveViewer.com, or send an email to the podcast in general at podcast@ObsessiveViewer.com. Check out the Obsessive Viewer blog at ObsessiveViewer.com, where we post movie and TV reviews and the occasional editorial about the business of entertainment. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer, and follow us on Twitter at ObsessiveViewer, at ObsessiveTiny, and at IamMikeWhite. If you want more obsessive content in your life, check out our sister site, ObsessiveBookNerd.com, for book reviews, author spotlights, and a general celebration of reading. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the podcatcher of your choice. Again, thank you so much for listening. We love you. Be excellent to each other.